Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore collapsed after it was struck by a cargo ship early on Tuesday morning. According to harrowing video footage, the ship appeared to lose power just before striking one of the bridge's pillars. You can watch it here. The collapse sent several vehicles into the water. Maryland Governor Wes Moore has declared a state of emergency, and Baltimore City Fire Chief James Wallace told reporters that the scene of the collapse was an active search and rescue. Now, while the number of workers on the bridge at the time remains unknown, emergency responders said that they were searching for at least 7 people who were missing. 2 people were rescued from the water. 1 person rescued from the water was in good condition and declined treatment, but the other was very seriously injured and was being treated in a local trauma center, Wallace said. Now, the bridge, which crosses over the Patapsco River on I-695, is a major transport route and leads into the Port of Baltimore. According to the Baltimore Sun, the bridge carried more than 12.3 million vehicles last year. CBS News writes that approximately 31,000 people took the bridge each day.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has responded to the collapse, writing on X, "I've spoken with Governor Moore and Mayor Scott to offer the U.S. Department of Transportation support following the vessel strike and collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Rescue efforts remain underway, and drivers in the Baltimore area should follow local responder guidance and detours in response." Ooh. So this happened, as we mentioned, around 1:30 in the morning last night, and the footage is some of the most horrifying, nightmare fuel types of images I've ever seen. Both the video of the boat striking the bridge and the images that emerged once the sun came up, showing the real scope of the destruction here. This is one of the longest span bridges in the world, at 1,200 feet. It's the 3rd longest span bridge of any continuous truss in the world. And as we mentioned, this is on a road that has a lot of transport implications for Baltimore, including trucking routes that are going to have to be rerouted to this really heavily trafficked area.
Yes, so there's a lot we could talk about here. First, the video footage itself, as you note, it's compelling. It's so horrifying. It's hard to stop watching it. This slow motion disaster. I mean, there are cars that make it over like seconds before the impact. Obviously, it was described already as a mass casualty event. We don't know how many cars did go into the water. Thank God this happened at 1:30 in the morning rather than during the commute. Yeah. It would have been hundreds or thousands dead. The ship is a Singapore ship called the Dali. It was 30 minutes into its voyage. It was very at the beginning. It was being driven by experts who specifically handle the ship when it's in a harbor when there are bridges to navigate, frankly, and actually that crew would have departed when it got to open waters, and then the normal crew would have taken over, which is a long way of saying that the people driving it at the time were the people who have special expertise to navigate this exact situation. So we don't, obviously everyone wants to know what went wrong. We don't know what went wrong, but that would, it could be a mechanical failure on the ship. You do kind of see the lights go off right before the collision. There's black smoke, and I understand from reading in the Daily Mail that was probably generated by them desperately trying to turn the ship in the other direction. So we don't know. Now, this ship has been investigated and had some technical problems in the past, described, I think, as minor technical problems, and it was last cleared in 2023 in New York City Harbor, where they said it was seaworthy. But what a disaster. And obviously, we talk about, there have been bridge collapses to talk about in the news. No bridge on Earth, no matter how well made, would survive this impact. It's not possible.
Yes, this was not an infrastructure failure. This was a piloting failure. Again, there's a lot of speculation surrounding what appears to be the lights going off just prior to the boat striking the truss of the bridge. And if that is, and in fact, what is going on there, then it does raise some questions about whether or not that technical failure might have been related to these earlier inspections that found something amiss on the ship. There's also an interesting question of what the extent of these search and rescue missions are going to be. The idea that they were able to rescue someone who had fallen from the bridge in the water who was relatively unscathed is kind of remarkable. I mean, I'm kind of a disaster scenario kind of a person, and I do find myself thinking what would happen if I go over this bridge at a certain time. I watch these movies and like, let me crack my window. It's because you can't open the door unless the water gets in and balances the pressure. And the idea that somebody either thought quickly on their feet or just were in a better situation to be able to come out of that unscathed is pretty remarkable.
So there were construction workers working on the bridge. Frankly, I mean, this is a horrible situation. If you're thrown off a bridge and you're going to the water, you'd rather be not in a car.
Not in a car.
The people who are in cars are, because then it's hard because of the pressure. It's hard to open the door. You're disoriented. You're sinking very fast. Whereas if you just go in, now you could. Frankly, you could hit the water, break every bone in your body, and just be dead at that height. And the water is, should be clear, at this time of year is still extremely cold. I think they said 47 degrees. So not like Titanic where you immediately go into hypothermia, but still extremely cold and disorienting. But you know, people get lucky in these kinds of things. You would certainly much rather just go into the water than be in a car and go into the water.
Right.
I think a few vehicles did. Frankly, it could have been more vehicles. Again, 2 or 3 go over the bridge. You see the video footage right before the thing hits the pillar.
Right. And even, I mean, again, because the bridge is so long, we don't know if those cars made it or not and what was happening on the other part of the bridge. It's remarkable that we have the footage in the first place. And the symbolic relevance of this bridge, to not just to people locally in Baltimore, but because it is the Francis Scott Key Bridge. It's named after the author of our national anthem, apparently because he's believed to have sat near the historical site of this bridge and witnessed the ramparts and the bombardments and the bombs bursting in air that have become part of the national anthem. And what a different sight was witnessed from the coast last night around 1:30 in the morning. Just looking at that footage is absolutely incredible stuff.
It looks like a disaster movie. It looks like Godzilla or something.
It does.
It's just horrifying.
It does. It really does.
And it's going to have some impact. I'm sure we'll, talk about this again when we have more information. Obviously, we all want to know what exactly went wrong. How could this have happened? Were there technical errors? Was there crew failure? What is the situation? This is going to impact trade, the economy, et cetera. This is a very important port for North America that is totally out of commission now. I'm understanding as of 3 hours ago, the crew of the ship was still on the ship, had not been allowed to get off, and I wonder if they're being vetted or investigated before they're allowed to go anywhere.
There was an update of about 40 minutes ago. This is just new in. The power loss has been confirmed. The ship says they lost propulsion, but the details are still a little scant. That does seem to really explain, just based on what you're looking at in that video, you do see the lights go off, and you do see it seems to take an odd trajectory, like it is a ship out of control. I can't imagine what the people on the ship are feeling, to the extent it's not any of their kind of pilot error or any of their fault for those kinds of reasons. The kind of devastation that was created by this enormous ship hitting one, again, of the biggest bridges of this type in the country and causing this really epic, horrible footage and devastation. We'll definitely keep following the story and let you know if any new facts emerge. Stick with us. There's more Rising coming up after this.